On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers went into Indiana and beat down the Pacers. We're going to talk about that game and the Cavs fallout from the Kyrie Irving to Dallas trade, all on this episode of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning, covering the Cavs and the NBA at large for places like Diamond UPROXX, SB Nation's Fear the Sword, and the Just Basketball Show. That man over there is Evan Dammarell, the proprietor of Down Euclid. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. And that promo code is Locked On. All right, here's the show today. Segment 1, player-focused, big takeaway from Cavs Pacers. Segment 2, our Cavs Pacers Game Award. Segment 3, we're going to talk about the Kyrie fallout, how it affects Cleveland, and also the Cavs' reported strong interest in Josh Hart, who we've talked about before, but some new reporting from Mark Stein kind of brought the Cavs up in that conversation again. And it's trade deadline week, so we're gonna talk about it. But Evan, let's start in Indiana. Cavs got one of their best road wins of the season, one of their best road performances overall, one of their most dominant wins of the season. As noted by the broadcast on Bally, this was their first back-to-back win since January 4th. That is over a month where the Cavs have been just alternating wins and losses and kind of been a little inconsistent. This was a really good win. You know, you didn't have to have Donovan Mitchell go off. You didn't have to have all this other things going. You just kind of just went in there and kicked crap out of the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I think the Cavs clearly understood the assignment. I talked with Spencer German about this earlier in the day on Sunday, and he asked me, like, do you think the Dylan Brooks dust-up maybe gave the Cavs a little bit of an edge? It looked like at least they're playing with an edge against the Pacers because Tyrese Halliburton's an all-star caliber guard. He is an all-star this year. Miles Turner is one of the better big men in the Eastern Conference, and I mean, obviously just didn't hold a candle to Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen tonight. The Cavs systematically went in and kind of just shut off the valve on Halliburton a little bit. Like Isaac Okoro's defense and Tyrese Halliburton was awesome in this game. And more than anything, like they just didn't allow the Pacers to get any clean looks at the rim in this game. So like this was just a very dominant win for Cleveland. Like you said, probably their best road win overall, just because like this is a fully healthy-ish Cavs team at this point. So like you're getting a full context of what they're capable of. And like you said, there wasn't a ton of Donovan Mitchell heroics. You didn't see him trying to bail Cleveland out in this situation or try and will them to victory at points. Like the Cavs are just dominant wire to wire. And I agree. This is one of their better road wins this year.
So running through the box score for this one, you have Evan Mobley at 17 and 10. Isaac Okoro had 20. Yes, Isaac Okoro had 20, made 3 of 4 from 3. Jarrett Allen had 18 and 13. Darius Garland had 24 and 6, with just 1 turnover. Donovan Mitchell, 19.6 assists on 6 of 18 shooting, 2 of 10 from 3. Evan, here's where I think the Cavs ultimately win this game more than anything else. They were playing incredibly big. The Cavs in this game were utterly coming in, and I thought just absolutely dominant inside, right? Like this was a team that has Allen and Mobley, and you're going to rely on that, but they just kind of like took Miles Turner. It didn't feel like Miles Turner had like a massive impact on this game. He was 9 of 8
empty calories in this game.
Yeah, 9 of 18 from the field for Turner. So like he had his moments, but like this wasn't like Miles Turner going toe to toe. Like those two guys went in there, and this was what being big in 2023 looks like. This is your big finishing lobs, scoring off of dynamic actions, blocking shots, ending possessions and finishing possessions. This is not throwing post-ups to them over and over again and using the size that way and playing slow and being inefficient. This is being dynamic with your bigs, and those guys absolutely having dominant defensive performances. When we get to stat of the night, the stat will illustrate that more than anything else, aside from maybe the film. But this was a Cavs team playing big, and they kicked crap out of the Pacers as a result.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And like you kind of alluded to in breaking down the stats, like this was probably the best Isaac Okoro game I've seen this season, because he gave you exactly what you needed from him, especially as a starting small forward for this Cleveland team. Like defensively, was spending most of the night defending Tyrese Halliburton, maybe sometimes with Benedict Mathurin or even Buddy Hield, but like was more than up for the assignment to slow down a perimeter attack from the opponent, this one being the Pacers. And then on the other side of the ball, Indiana left him open at times from 3-point range, and he made the Pacers pay for it. And like you said, it was odd to see Isaac Okoro be like one of the headline scorers, at least for the starting unit. He was the headline scorer, but
yeah,
in this game, just for context, he was 3 of 4 from 3-point range, 3 of 3 from the line, 7 of 9 overall from the floor, had 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. Like he was showing clear two-way impact in this one, and he only did it in about 29 minutes played. So this was a very good game for Isaac Okoro. I want to say his best game thus far this season. We'll see how this goes, obviously, for the remainder of the year. But he was really, really, really good in this game. And like my hats are off to him, or at least my one hat is off to him just for playing really well in this game. And just, again, JB Bickerstaff put the Cavs in the right position to succeed early on. And a lot of that does have to be attributed to Okoro and then his other defensive co-stars in Allen and Mobley as well.
Okoro's playing with a ton of confidence right now. It's doing him a lot of wonders. Evan, the only other thing I want to hit on before we move on is I just want to ask about Donovan Mitchell, because I don't think when you watch him right now, Mitchell isn't necessarily playing at he's not playing at his best. He's looked a little off of late. I think that groin is definitely still an issue. The explosiveness isn't totally there. I don't think he's looking to drive as much. He's settling for jumpers a little bit more. He's still doing effective things because he's Donovan Mitchell. 6 assists in this game is solid enough. Did make some threes at key times, just the 2 he made. But this is not like a good version of Mitchell. This is not a Mitchell that was playing. This is not the all NBA level Mitchell we saw prior to this injury. I do think like the All-Star break will do him a lot of good. I don't really see a lot of upside in him playing through this either. Maybe give him the night off in DC. Maybe give him a night off later this week. They have a very jam-packed week of games. They have 2 back-to-backs this week. They play on Sunday. They play Monday. They play at home on Wednesday, then in New Orleans Friday, and then home against Chicago on Saturday. Like I think it might do Mitchell some good to maybe not play all of those games and get a little bit of rest just to kind of get right as they head into the break. And then the All-Star break, obviously hope he get a little more healed as well, even though he will be starting in Utah, all things considered.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's interesting to note, like, there's now 3 games that we haven't seen Kevin Love touch the floor. He's been a DNP coach's decision despite being available. And his thumb clearly isn't right. I wonder, like you said, if the Cavs take a similar vein with like just how they're approaching Donovan Mitchell and just punt Monday's game against the Washington Wizards, because I doubt Ricky Rubio plays because they don't plan on playing him in back-to-backs until after the All-Star break. Like you said, Mitchell, just the explosiveness isn't quite there. So it's kind of lacking. He's settling for 3-point shots at times. JB Bickerstaff was asked about this the other day and kind of tried to blame the officiating for it more than anything, just because you're not seeing Mitchell get a lot of free throws or draw a lot of contact. But I agree with you. I think if you can find ways to be creative and like, because I just don't know, the Cavs are so reliant at times at Donovan Mitchell. Like, it just depends on who they're playing. Like, maybe they can afford to rest him more down the stretch, but you got to get creative with it and then find a way to keep him healthy and upright post All-Star break, because he's going to be busy. He's going to be playing in the All-Star game. If I'm Cleveland, you don't want a similar situation to last year at Darius Garland, where his back was clearly bothering him heading into the All-Star break. You let him do all the All-Star activities and festivities. You try to gear him back up for regular action, and his back was still bothering him. So you had to shut him down, and it like really just made things unsteady, especially with Karis LeVert trying to come back into the full, or coming into the full period then. So I don't know. The Cavs just need to navigate this probably a little bit more delicately at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, I think they have shown, I think with the way Garland's playing of late, I think like they've kind of shown like they're starting to kind of, in the way Mobley's playing of late as well. I think there's more here to work with beyond just needing Mitchell to be superstar Mitchell. He's going to be great if everything works out for them fully. Like he's going to, like, ultimately the best version of this team is the one that has Donovan Mitchell playing at that all NBA level and playing the way he did to start the year. But it's also pushing Garland forward in the way he has, pushing Mobley forward and continually getting out of Okoro. And it's better for Mitchell in the long run if there's just less, I think, relying on him. And again, maybe just a night off here or there does him some good just to get him right for when the season really matters. Of note, though, if the Cavs do win on Monday and the Nets lose to the Clippers at home, Cavs will be a backup and 4th in the East. So I wonder, again, like it's still very early on, but like I wonder if that factors into their thinking at all. But all right, we're going to come back after this break. We're going to dive into our game awards. That's MVP, play of the night, and stat of the night. But first, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. To play, all you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they go score more or less than their projections, you win based on how you pick. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It is just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, Eurobasketball, cricket, and many, many more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, back to your Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning and Evan Dammarell with you. Evan, who's your MVP?
Well, first off, I have to say maybe it's just me in this one, but
we're not doing LeBron tweet theater. We're not doing LeBron tweet theater because oh boy, check out Locked On Lakers for that. I don't miss having to do podcasts about cryptic LeBron stuff. Let me tell you.
Well, you know what, man? I want you to fit in instead of fit out and be a part of something special. So my MVP tonight is Isaac Okoro. Again, he was just so good on both ends of the floor, and I don't think we get to really praise what a complete Isaac Okoro game looks like just because the script hasn't really been set for him. But holy cow, he was just so impactful on either end. Like honorable mention Evan Mobley too. He was really, really good against Miles Turner and just was dominant again in this game at times. So again, like we talked about in the first segment, encouraging signs of growth. Guys not named Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell in this game were clearly being shown, and Isaac Okoro is my MVP because of it.
I'm gonna go Evan Mobley for mine, just because I just keep watching him and watching the things he's doing, and I'm just like, my God, this guy is, I think, really leveling up the last month. The handle's a little bit loose. That's like number one, tighten this up in the summer thing, I think, on the list for Evan Mobley if we're looking ahead to next summer, which both feels like it's going to be soon and also feels like it's like about 8 bajillion years away. But look, 17 points, 7 of 12 from the field, 7 of 11 on 2-point shots, 10 boards, had a steal, 3 blocks. I think didn't really have very many issues with the physicality of Miles Turner. And like, look, Miles Turner isn't like Joel Embiid sized or like Jokic sized or whatever, but that's a big, strong dude. And Mobley is handling that, I think, better than he was a year ago. He's absolutely everywhere on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, I think this guy is just absolutely like the two-way monster this guy is going to be at his apex is absolutely terrifying. And like, these are the games where like you watch it and you see the stuff he's doing and you see how he can command the floor on the defensive end of the floor. And you see what he can do in offense, and it's like, oh my God, this guy at his peak.
It's still hard to like picture what Evan Mobley's peak be, obviously, and like it's really not such a like black and white conversation. There's a lot of gray space just because we don't know what he really is fully capable of, just given the situation in Cleveland. But like, you're seeing an emergence. You're seeing a Mobley who's very confident in himself on either end of the floor, and I know it's a coaching cliche, but finding ways to make impacts and winning just in every way, shape, or form. Like you said, like Miles Turner isn't Joel Embiid. He's not even like Giannis Antetokounmpo or even Brook Lopez, or just maybe just like those guys who are like upper echelon big defenders. But Miles Turner is no slouch. He is a bigger player, and Mobley navigated it very well and played very well in this situation. He's just so multifaceted and just so fascinating as a prospect that I don't know, again, what his ceiling can be, but it is cool to watch him just kind of grow as time goes on at his own organic rate instead of kind of being forced or pigeonholed into something he may not be comfortable with.
Go to 2:42 of the second quarter. Bally posted this clip on Twitter, so people can go watch it. But he slips a screen, catches the ball from Garland after the big comes up and gets in Garland's face and tries to defend the pick and roll that way. All he does is catch the ball at the free throw line, and he fakes inside and spins back past Tyrese Halliburton and dunks. The footwork even just in that little stuff is just like levels above what he was last year. I think even earlier this year, like, whew, sky's the limit for that dude. All right, Evan, play of the night for you is what?
It's a little bit of a different one, but it's just another guy I kind of want to try and give a shout out. But Ricky Rubio had like a hezzy Euro step in the third quarter, and he got the Pacers defense to bite on it quite a bit, and he got Dean Wade a very clean look at the top of the perimeter because of it. It's interesting just to see Rubio level up a little bit. Darius Garland said the other night he thinks he's about 95% there physically, so we're watching maybe that final 5% come in place. But Rubio's starting to play with that juice again, and a pass like that, just with that little bit of extra added flair, is a clear indication of Rubio's juice. And also, Dean Wade is feeling a lot more comfortable out there too, so it's a 2 for me on this play.
So I'm going to go Donovan Mitchell. I think maybe the best play of his night. Third quarter, perfect pass. Darius Garland is on the receiving end of it to finish up at the rim. I just thought this was a nice play call to use them together and not just kind of vibing off of each other and just doing different things with one as a decoy, or, you know, maybe one's the screener in a double drag set. Like, they kind of used Mitch Garland off ball and used him as a little backup just to have Mitchell find him that way. And I just kind of like those kind of different ways to use your guards. It reminded me, real heads will remember, the Cavs when they had Clarkson and Delly used to love running this play where Delly brings up the ball and Clarkson would just back cut immediately, and they would beat teams on it like at least like once a game, it felt like. I just love little stuff like that. Use your guys in more creative ways. Try to get them easy buckets. Throw different looks at teams. I just like this. All right, stat of the night. And then here's mine, and this is... these numbers are bonkers. Okay, so in the first half, Pacers shot 37.5% at the rim. That number climbed up to 51.3 in the second half, which is better. Evan, the league average on the year is 66.5% according to Clean the Glass.
Jeez.
That means the Cavs held the Pacers 14% below league average in terms of how they shot at the rim within 4 feet, according to how Clean the Glass defines it. Mm-hmm. That's with like 50% of their shots in the first half coming at the rim and nearly 50% for the game coming at the rim. This was just like Indiana did nothing of note inside. Like the part on the floor where you are supposed to be the most efficient, the Cavs absolutely just kind of erased that out of existence.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I talked about in the first segment, maybe I was tipping my hand a little bit just to get people a little intrigued here, but this was a very dominant performance for Cleveland, and it kind of coincides with the fact that it was a team effort on the offense. Like the defense took care of itself. It limited Indiana's opportunities, and on the other side of things, the offense just took care of itself as well. It's more of a team effort, because my stat of the night it's simple. It's just all 5 players had double-digit scoring, while Rubio, Osman, Wade, the 3 bench players for Cleveland in this game, were pretty close to joining them. So like it was a solid effort across the board. And then you just saw a lot of garbage time down the stretch, so it does skew it a little bit just in terms of who did or didn't score in double digits, but simple stuff. And it's also just fun to worth noting that Darius Garland is now at 500 plus 3-pointers made for Cleveland after this game. Jetty Osman's climbing up the ranks, but Darius Garland's coming for that title.
Fastest Cav all time to 500.
Not really. Well,
that's what they said on the broadcast.
I know that, but also it's just like the 3-pointer is a little bit of a difficult number because LeBron will own pretty much every statistical anomaly ever for Cleveland, but there's some interesting ones where you're like, whoa, he doesn't have that. But then you realize like the Cavs have like a certain group of just like upper echelon talent that like own the top 4 to top 5, which is impressive. But I wouldn't be surprised if Darius is like really all the way up there by the time his career is said and done.
Yeah, very possible, assuming he has like a long tenure and all that. All right, one more break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Kyrie Irving in relation to how him leaving Brooklyn affects the Cavs. Go check out Locked On Mavs and Locked On Nets if you want some trade fallout. And then, look, we're also going to talk about Josh Hart. But first, a couple things today. First, the NBA trade deadline is approaching, and Locked On has you covered. Thursday, February 9th, tune into Locked On NBA on YouTube at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to hear reaction from the trades that will change the rest of the NBA season, who becomes contenders, and who is tanking for a better future, a.k.a. trying to get Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson. Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube, and don't miss a deal. Today's episode is also brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, you have to try Built Bar. Look, we got through the holidays this year, and I know my goal is to eat a little bit healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier and want to have a treat without all the fat and all the calories, then you gotta try Built. These are not a compromise. They are healthy. They're seriously tasty. They're so delicious, you're going to think they're good for you. What makes Built Bar so good, you ask? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around and get a box. For years, we've been telling you about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. Thank Evan and I later. Okay, last segment, Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell. Please, by the way, subscribe on YouTube if you have not already, and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Leave that 5-star rating and review. We really, really appreciate it here at Locked On Cavs.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, let's start with Kyrie. So he's out of Brooklyn, a team the Cavs are competing with in the top of the East, a team the Cavs are jockeying for position with. We're going to put like 5 minutes on the clock for this overall, but what do you think this means for the Nets in relation to what Cavs kind of have to deal with in terms of competing with them to be a top 4 seed and push up against the top 3 in the East right now as far as the playoff picture goes?
Well, as long as Kevin Durant is out, the Cavs can capitalize on the momentum that the Nets are kind of losing right now just because Kyrie was on a bit of a tear, then he had the trade demand, and now the Nets are just kind of trying to figure out their way without their just main and only star remaining left out there. So I like this trade for Brooklyn at the end of the day, like getting Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, 2 dudes who play really hard on defense and pair nicely next to Kevin Durant. Like that makes a lot of sense. That 2029 unprotected first round pick is really good return for Kyrie Irving, a guy who may leave you if you're the Mavericks. Go listen to Locked On Mavericks for Nick Angstadt. We'll be putting the angst in Angstadt into fruition from this episode reaction, but I don't know. It depends on what the Nets do because they have that draft pick. They could always take Ben Simmons if there is some intrigue, and like maybe they can convince Chicago to bite on Simmons in that draft pick for Zach LaVine, or maybe the Wizards finally get out of their own way and finally trade Bradley Beal to Brooklyn as well. Like the Nets feel like they are one more move away from kind of like really like shaking up the landscape of the East, but when they're fully healthy, like you have Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Durant, Claxton, and I would just assume Simmons or Harris just to round out the starting 5. And like that's a really good starting unit. There's a lot of spot up shooting in Brooklyn. Like I think they're still a very good team, but just on the inverse of just like the standings watch and just how this shakes the scope of things. Like as long as Kevin Durant is out, the Cavs have a lot of opportunities to create a bit more of a gulf between the two and also just kind of maintain distance from Brooklyn in general. So we'll see how it goes. I have my questions on how it's going to work in Dallas, but it's going to be must-see TV at the end of the day. And yeah, the Nets still kind of have the space and the picks at least to maybe make another move, and we'll see what they do with it.
Even if they don't make a move, I kind of just think that they're going to be a very
like their roster on paper. Like they play hard for Jacques Vaughn too. Like that's the thing.
So I think their roster around Kevin Durant just makes sense. Like I think they have a ton of wing defenders. They have a ton of shooting. They have enough ball handlers. I think if they go get another big, that would make a lot of sense just to have an alternative to Claxton. Like a Jakob Poeltl, I think would make a lot of sense for them. Like this team is not going to just fade away if Durant is healthy. If he's not healthy, or where he gets traded, which I don't think is going to happen based on everything that's kind of out there right now, I think like this team is still going to be a problem. Are they necessarily a top of the top East contender vis-a-vis Boston or Milwaukee, who quietly is now 1 game behind, or Philly, who's been awesome as of late? I think like they're a step behind them, but the Cavs might be a little step behind those teams as well. And Brooklyn has Durant, and like I'm just not going to write off a team that has Durant. I think this is still going to be a very big competition. The shout you had to say, look, while Durant is out, you got to maximize that. I think that's exactly right. I think that can give you a leg up, and maybe you get, even if you see them in a 4-5, that at least gives you some home court advantage to work with. Evan, to move on to Josh Hart, and we'll talk maybe more about the East playoff picture vis-a-vis the trade deadline when we get to Friday. I feel like considering if the Cavs don't do anything, I think certainly that could be something we dive into. I think certainly something we'll dive into next week and at the All-Star break and all of that stuff. Mark Stein has reported that Josh Hart is someone the Cavs have strong interest in. He's a player that a lot of teams, according to Stein, has strong interest in. We talked about him a little bit, but in the past. But what do you just make of Hart? Like, what do you just think about this as a trade option?
I don't hate the fit for Josh Hart. I think it's a guy who would play really, really hard for the Cavs. I think he fits the bill of a player that GB Bickerstaff would like because he's a bit of a defensive grinder. I don't know how much rebounding you really need at the guard position, but sure, let's roll with it, I guess, at the end of the day if you're the Cavs. But also, I just don't know if you if the Cavs have to pay a ton for Josh Hart, maybe I cool on that a little bit. But let's say the Cavs 2 trade deadline moves are to acquire a guy in that ilk of Josh Hart. Maybe it's Tim Hardaway Jr. as well, and then they go get Cam Reddish as well, and that's a pretty successful deadline at the end of the day. But in terms of Hart, he could be somewhat of a shooter, but it's more the defensive upside. And I think the question for you, Chris, is would you rather have Isaac Okoro at this point or Josh Hart on an expiring contract?
I would rather have Isaac Okoro, and I don't think that's really a question.
That's where I'm at too. Just breaking down the statistical. I like Josh Hart as a player. I think it'd be fun. I think the playmaking intrigue is there, but I just think as Okoro continues to gel more at the starting unit and look more comfortable and confident in himself, I wonder if the Cavs just focus more on shooting because they have a little bit of that perimeter defensive bump from Rubio and Okoro and Wade, and then spot minutes from Lamar Stevens at times.
Where I think Hart would make sense, and where I think he would make some sense, is just that I think you can never really have enough of these competent wings. The shooting thing with him is a little bit weird. I could see there being some redundancy with Okoro, and I think there's some kind of concern there. But I think if you were to get him and you're to say, look, we can re-sign him, which you'd have to do based on, I think, trading for him. If you're Cleveland, you got to keep guys that I think trade for. That's kind of part of, I think, continuing to build out whatever this is ultimately going to be. I think he's a guy that even with the shooting concerns, I think defends at a really high level. I think he would probably make more sense in your rotation than a Karis LeVert. Here's where I think this kind of falls apart. The Cavs are not, to me, an obvious one-to-one trade partner with Portland, because I think if Portland is going to make a move here, it's going to be something that really helps them retool on the fly around Dame. It is going to be something that is okay, we're going to go get a guy that's maybe a better second banana than a Simons or a Grant, and kind of refigure out our salary structure, or be a team where they can trade Yusuf Nurkic out for something else and use that salary and other stuff to kind of get something and improve on the Nurkic spot and the Nurkic contract. The Cavs don't really have that kind of trade for them, and that kind of complicates things. This kind of means I think you might need a third team to really facilitate this, unless you were to do you could do Jetty and Windler and do that, but is that really moving the needle for Portland if you're even just throwing in seconds? I don't really think that does it for me if I'm Portland. There's also a tax consideration here. Both of these teams are very close to the luxury tax, and I don't think the Cavs one on the Cavs side, if they were to do Windler and Osman for Hart, that would put them a little bit over the tax, I believe. Not by much, so you could still theoretically get under it, but it's I don't think they're going to do that this year. Just the way the rules work, and even with the new CBA coming, it doesn't make sense to trigger some of these luxury tax things. So I think Hart would make sense. I just don't. I think a trade for him is going to be kind of complicated just to kind of figure out based on what Portland I think is going to want, what the Cavs can offer, and just how all the money stuff is going to figure itself out. I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see. And it seems like Hart is going to get moved as well. All the reporting around it seems like he is one of the most likely players to get dealt. Stein had that in his thing as well. That's kind of been out there. That is interesting, and I'm curious to see where he ends up because I think he's a good player who can be in a playoff rotation. I'm curious to see what the structure of those kind of deals look like and how it compares to what Cleveland has.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think it's worth noting, maybe keep an eye on Tim Hardaway Jr. still, just because he is a streaky shooter. Maybe Dallas looks to get more ball handling now that they don't have Dinwiddie anymore, and they're trying to do Luka and Kyrie together as their 1A and 1B ball handling. So maybe Karis LeVert makes a little bit more sense in Dallas now that they have Kyrie there and no Spencer Dinwiddie, but we'll see. I think the Cavs might have some options, and I think it's fair to question, do they want to spend what little assets they have left to maybe make a move that's within the margins, or they just become more focused on getting healthy. Maybe they make a smaller move. Like let's say like it's Cam Reddish for a second round pick and Dylan Windler. At least you're using that roster spot on a player who could be more available than Dylan Windler is at the end of the day. But other than that, maybe it's hard to judge just because they just beat the bricks off of the Pacers like they did, and they will play another okayish team in the Wizards on Monday night. Then they play the Pistons on Wednesday. So it's hard to fully gauge like how the Cavs as a more healthy unit kind of stack up against some of the elite teams in the Eastern Conference, but it at least gives you reason for optimism heading up to the trade deadline. The Cavs are a little bit in a better place than maybe we had thought heading in like the last week or so.
All right, trade deadline this week. Again, check out the Lockdown special. We'll have everything covered here on the Cavs specific side of things, whether they make a deal or not, and how those deals affect the Cavs as far as their positioning in the East and how the other teams around them do. So stay tuned for that later this week. We're going to be back on Tuesday, getting you through Cavs Wizards and any other Cavs rumors that come up between now and then. So stay tuned for that. Please subscribe if you have not already. Thanks again for making us your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with the local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.